everyone, thanks for viewing, and don't forget to click subscribe if you like what you see. Now today I'm going to be talking about my latest acquisition, which is this. It is an I2C card for the Amiga. Now what's I2C, you might ask? Well, it is a simple serial interface between computer chips, and that allows them to communicate relatively easily. Why was it invented? Well, the purpose behind I2C was to reduce pin counts on chips that needed to communicate with each other but not at super high speeds. So this I2C serial interface was created and actually found a number of applications. But you might be thinking, that's all very interesting, but what on earth do you want to use I2C for in your Amiga? And there are a couple of answers to that questions. One of those relates to another video that I'll be posting after this one. But for these purposes, the reason I got this card was all about being able to measure the temperatures and the voltages inside an Amiga while it's in operation. Now, why might I want to do that? Well, if the voltages for some reason get a bit too low or the temperatures get a bit too high, that could lead to spurious crashes of the machine. Just a lot easier to diagnose that if you can see that the volts or temps might be out of their normal range. That's particularly true when it comes to the temperature inside the Amiga 3000, and the machine I'm going to put this card in is in an Amiga 3000 case, and they are notorious for having poor airflow and therefore are very susceptible to overheating. So measuring the temperature will be a key part of that. What I actually came with this card was a clever little cable here that's going to fit into the white connector I've got that has a temperature sensor on the end. I think that's a simple transistor, but that was already set up for me, so I could just plug that in and measure the temperature at a sort of fixed point within the case. So that's all very handy, but what else can this card do? Well, I've got a couple of those other I2C headers here, so I can plug them into, via cables to whatever else I want to use as sensors. And this particular card also has two headers here for fans, 4-pin fan headers for PWM pulse width modulation of fans, so I can actually, if I want to, mount up to 2 of those fans inside the case and regulate the speed of them from software rather than having to do that through hardware or leaving them running fully at full speed all the time. Now actually this is one particular I2C card. It's a CPLD IC card produced by Henrik Richter, so many thanks to him. The designs for this card are on his Git page, where the PCB layout and parts are listed, so I'll include a link to that so that you can build one of these for yourself. But there are many other types of I2C card that are available. There's the original IC card produced by Martin Burma from E3B, and this card is in fact software compatible with that, but there are other I2C cards as well. Some of them plug into the Zorro slot like this one, some of them into the clock port of something like an Amiga A1200, and some into, I think, even the serial and parallel ports, and of course they're also available for other computers as well. One question I often get asked about is where did you get your card from? Can I get one there too? Now the answer for these I2C cards is, as far as I'm aware, they're not regularly manufactured, so you can't go to one of the Amiga or retro computer stores online and just order one of these off the shelf, which makes them a little bit tricky to come by. What I did was to ask around on some of the Amiga forums just to see if anybody had a card that they were prepared to sell. Ideally, for my purposes, one that was pre-built, and that's how I managed to get hold of this one. As I say, if you know how to create a PCB or get one created and then solder up the parts, the Git site for Henrik Richter has the details of how to build one of these on it. Okay, I think that's enough chat. Now's the time to get this card into the machine and fire up the software.
Okay, so the card's in the machine and I've powered it up. As you can see, I'm in Workbench. So let's just run which Amiga. And the reason for doing that is it's going to tell me what cards are in the machine. So we can ignore these first few. This, by the way, is my AA 3000 Plus that I've featured on earlier videos. And that's why it's showing things like a Voodoo 3 graphics card in here, because that's running off PCI. This top one but is the PowerPC coprocessor that's in there. But what we're really looking at is this entry here, E3B IC I2C controller. So that's exactly the new card that I've just put in. So that's great. It's showing up as the E3B version because, as I said before, this is a directly compatible card. It's actually the CPLD IC rather than the E3B IC, but doesn't matter for these purposes. That's perfect. So now what we need to do is set up the software. So I've got that on a trusty USB stick. So let's just whack that in and start having a look at that. So volumes, my stick here. Now the first package is this archive called I2C lib40.lha.lar. And that is available from Aminet, don't know how to say it. And that is needed really to get the I2C interface working at all so that the Amiga can simply talk to other I2C devices. And then you also need, certainly for this card, and I think it's recommended generally, is this thing called I2C sensors, which is from Henrik Richter's Git site that has the software on it. And we'll come back to that in a minute, but that kind of sits on top of I2C lib and provides greater functionality in quite a compatible way so that it's much easier to put applications on top of I2C and get them running regardless of what I2C card you've got actually in the machine. But for now, let's just start with this I2C lib40 and let's decrunch that into my RAM drive. And I think let's just minimize that. Go on, let's be cool. And somewhere, yeah, here we go, I2C lib and install. So this is the familiar installer routine. Let's say pretend I'm an expert user and install for real. And I do want to install the I2C library. It's interesting, set special options for IC. Let's see if there's anything in the help here. So they only apply to the operation of Michael Burmer's IC interface board, which this is compatible with. So I might have to come back and reinstall this to do those options after I've done the main install. So, but for now, and there's configure as well, isn't there? So I might need to do all three of those things. But let's just do install the I2C library. And for this card, it is an auto config board and it's compatible with the IC card as I keep on going on about. So let's just proceed with that. Now we need to enter a timing parameter, which is an inherent part of I2C library. This kind of depends on the machine that you're running in, and by the way, is described much better than I can in the documentation that comes with I2C library. But it's a figure you need to feed in depending on your Amiga setup. The suggestion for this machine, being a big box Amiga, is a 1, not a 10. So let's just do that. And that's the installation complete. So that was the original library install. Let's just run the installer again. And this time we're going to select configure. So, okay, it's just asking me for the timing parameters again. So I don't think that really was necessary. So that's okay. And a third time, this time special options for IC. Let's just see what that is all about. What Crystal was installed actually I seem to recall from having a quick look at my CPLD IC card from earlier, it is a 12 megahertz, so that's fine. And the size threshold for interrupt operation, I have no idea what to set that as. So let's have a quick look here. The built-in default threshold is a transfer byte count of 8. So let's just go with that and see what happens. And if there are any problems, then I can come back to that. But that seems to be the setup of I2C lib. So now we need to turn attention to the other set of files that was in I2C sensors. And these ones we have to deal with in different ways. I don't think there's a neat installer. That's what I'm trying to say. So I think perhaps the easiest thing to do is just going to be to smash all this into RAM again and then work out where things need to go. We'll come back to what some of these things are in a moment, but let me just get that starting. So obviously there are README files here. There are a couple of programs I can run, diagnostics and simple sensors, and there are some sensor definitions, more on those later. We've got some documentation, we've got the library, which is going to be a critical part of this, and then the source code, very helpfully included, but I think we don't need to spend too much time on that. It's the other files that we need to concern ourselves with. Okay, so now's the time to start installing that second layer of software, the I2C sensors. So let's go and find that where I unarchived it, and here it all is. And you can see there are various files here that I was showing you before, and we've got to copy them to different places. So I think the easiest thing to do is to just do this by the CLI, the shell. And what am I doing? I'm trying to go to I2C sensors directory and then sensors, isn't it? So let's go there. Okay, so now this command prompt is in the same place as all of this, and I need to work through these various bits and pieces. So let's get the library sorted out first. So, whoops, I need to have the focus in the right place. So let's do that. So copy libs to libs. That's easy enough. Copy C to C. So that's that. Now that's the library and the executable files, which are just going to help me work out that this is actually in operation at all, which leaves me with devs sensors. And this is worth looking at a little bit, because what you've got here is a bunch of configuration files for the various different I2C cards that are supported. I think the one I need is this one, because it's a simple text file, by the way, so I can go in, have a look at it and change it if I need to. But this does start with configuration for ICV2 board. So I think that is probably me. So what I'm going to do is copy this one into devs sensors and the other ones into storage sensors, so that they are there for the future, but kind of I'm not clogging up the configuration process by a bunch of config files for things that aren't actually used in this machine. So let's get on and do that. So I think the first thing to do is to make this directory, and then I can copy from dev sensors ltc 2990.config to devs sensors. Yeah, that's that one. And do you know what? I might as well just put them all in to storage. So I've just got everything there, even the one that I've just copied into devs. I think I will live with that. So I don't want to make sir, do I? I want to make dir. I tell you what, Let's just make sure I'm going to put these in the right places before I mess up. So let's just have a look. So storage, right in there. Yeah. Okay. So storage. Whoops. Try that again. Got a bit carried away with the old keyboard shortcuts. And we can have some of that. Oh dear, typing letting me down. Right. Does that look about right? Copy everything that's in dev sensors to sys storage sensors. Done. Right. Close down some of this nonsense. Don't think we need the RAM disk anymore, so let's get rid of that, and I can get rid of that. And close all of that. Right. So, let's just get back somewhere sensible. Okay, so now I am hoping that what I can do is run one of the binary executables that came with the I2C sensors library just to sort of test that this thing is working. So let's run that, and it has come up with some stuff. So it's opened up. Okay, it's got a voltage reading of 3, or is that 3 sensors? I think that's probably 3. It's got 3 readings of voltage, no readings of current, 2 of temperature, no fan pressure or power or humidity, which is okay. So then we've got the VCC as 2.5 volts. I hope that's about right. Don't know. My 5 volt supply, it looks, is only 4.665. So that's a little bit low actually, which is exactly the kind of thing that I would like to know. My 12 volt voltage is actually 13 and a little bit. So again, I'm slightly over on the 12 volts and under on the 5 volts. I suspect that might be because if you were watching one of the earlier videos in this series, you'd know that I'm running a modern power supply in this machine, a Flex 80X power supply, which probably puts out a lot more juice on the 12 volt supply than 5 volt, whereas the Amiga is probably using a lot of 5 volts and not much 12 volts. So there's probably a lot of loading at the 5 volt supply there, but not much on 12 volts, which is why we're getting these readings. But even so, that's a bit low. So I might need to look into that. So this thing has been useful already. And then we come on to temperature 37.5. That's interesting. So I'm one of 0. So I don't believe the 0, but 37.5 sounds plausible. By the way, where I am at Wrangler HQ, it is an absolute heat wave here at the moment. It's probably right now, as I'm recording this, it's probably about 30 degrees outside. So a motherboard temperature of 37.5 just seems very believable. In fact, I feel myself like I'm 37.5 right now, but I can definitely believe that reading. I do have the case off the machine right now, so I'll be interested to just see what I get from this with the case on, and if I leave it for a while just to sort of warm up. Let's run it again and just see what we come up with. We've got some more readings here, so that's quite interesting then. So my VCC is all over the place because now I'm at 4.68. And my voltage is a similar number to before, these two, so I think they look believable. And my two temperatures are quite similar. So I think one of these is measuring the temperature of the I2C chip itself, LTC2990, and the other one is that external sensor I showed you before. And I am wondering whether the reason I'm getting slightly inconsistent results here is if I've got that speed parameter set a little bit too fast. So I might need to tweak with that. So let's just try that again. Yeah, more believable results now. And I'm guessing this time VCC really is measuring the 5 volt supply. Who knows why that came up as 2.5 before. But if I just extend that a little bit, you can see these temperatures are jumping around a little bit, but they seem to be fairly stable. So there we have it. The I2C card is all set up. Not very difficult to get going if you've got the right software bits and pieces, software archives readily to hand. It's working in this machine, and that is now ready for me to add in some other sensors, but that's for another day. That's all we've got time for in this video. If you liked it, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.